Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is Black Lives Matter and the understanding of what that actually means, uh, because a common response is all lives matter. So we're going to discuss that today and get get a deeper sense of compassion and understanding about what this actually means. Before we do that, though, let's take a minute to settle in and get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose, hold it, and feel the energy coursing through your body. And as you exhale, just relax and release any tension in your neck, in your throat, in your back, and your jaw. And now let's take another deep breath in. And just imagine light coursing through every cell of your being and radiating out. And as we exhale, let's just exhale to relax. And let's gently place our fingers, our palms together, and softly rub our fingers against our palms. Feel your fingers, feel your palms. And let's become present here right now. Wonderful. And good morning and welcome to Dido and Chameleon. I love you. Peace, love, and infinite blessings. Thank you so much. Wow, what a great way to start the day. And Sally De La Rosa says hi. Welcome, Sally. And Lisa Phillips says good morning. So great to see you all here today. I'm excited about today's topic because what we're called to do in this time of separation and division, and it's not really just that. It's a place of where all opposites occur. So in this moment of separation and division, we're able to experience also greater connection and unity. And part of that is education around these, the understanding and compassion around prejudice of all sorts, and especially the racial divide right now, and come to a deeper understanding of what's going on and how we can be instrumental in healing, in creating the healing. And so one of the biggest things that we can do right now is to get educated, and particularly those of us who are white, who have less experience, shall we say, with the deep-seated prejudice that exists for people of color. Let's just dig in a little bit. It's interesting. I came across an article yesterday after having attended a a gathering of very conscious, very spiritually oriented, and very conscious people. And at one point in the conversation, someone said Black Lives Matter, and someone responded, All Lives Matter. And at that time, it seemed, of course, all lives matter for me. And I then later last night came across this article, and the article is titled Why You Should Stop Saying All Lives Matter. Okay, so I thought this was pretty provocative. So I'm just going to read it. It's a common conversation these days. One person says Black Lives Matter, then another responds, No, all lives matter. And I just experienced that, in fact. It's also a complete misunderstanding of what the phrase Black Lives Matter means. The person on the receiving end interprets the phrase as Black Lives Matter more than any other lives. But the point of Black Lives Matter isn't to suggest that Black lives should be or are more important than all other lives. Instead, it's simply pointing out that Black people's lives are relatively undervalued in the U.S. and more likely to be ended by police. And the country needs to recognize that inequity to bring an end to it. To this end, a better way to understand Black Lives Matter is by looking at its driving phrase as Black Lives Matter too. So all lives do matter, obviously, but it's one subset of lives in particular that's currently undervalued in America. And then the article goes on to give 9 other examples of ways that the response all lives matter have has been rebuked. So I'm just going to keep reading, but I want to say hi to Carla Rangel. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to invite you guys to this article, by the way, was on Vox.com. That's V as in Victor, OX.com. And the title of the article, if you want to look it up, is Why You Should Stop Saying All Lives Matter, explained in 9 different ways. So I just want to continue reading because I hadn't understood it, actually. So I'm going to confess to the fact that I had not understood the meaning that Black Lives Matter too. And that's a huge distinction. So here's an example. This was from a Reddit user, and here's their explanation. Imagine that you're sitting down to dinner with your family, and while everyone else gets a serving of the meal, you don't get any. So you say, I should get my fair share. And as a direct response to this, your dad corrects you, saying, everyone should get their fair share. Now, that's a wonderful sentiment. Indeed, everyone should. And that was kind of your point in the first place, that you should be a part of everyone and you should get your fair share also. However, Dad's comment just dismissed you and didn't solve the problem that you still haven't gotten any. The problem is that the statement, I should get my fair share, had an implicit too at the end. I should get my fair share too, just like everyone else. But your dad's response treated your statement as though you meant only I should get my fair share, which clearly was not your intention. As a result, the statement that everyone should get their fair share, while true, only served to ignore the problem you were trying to point out. That's the situation with the Black Lives Matter movement. Culture, laws, the arts, religion, and everyone else repeatedly suggests that all lives should matter. Clearly, that message already abounds in our society. The problem is that in practice, the world doesn't work that way. He goes on to talk about a movie, and I'm not going to bother about that. So I'm going to skip down, and it says, just like asking Dad for your fair share, the phrase Black Lives Matter also has an implicit too at the end. It's saying that Black lives should also matter. But responding to this by saying all lives matter is willfully going back to ignoring the problem. It's a way of dismissing the statement by falsely suggesting that it means only Black Lives Matter, when that's obviously not the case. And so saying all lives matter as a direct response to Black Lives Matter is essentially saying that we should just go back to ignoring the problem. The phrase Black Lives Matter carries an implicit too at the end. It's saying that Black lives should also matter. Saying all lives matter is dismissing the very problem that the phrase is trying to draw attention to. And there were a couple other examples. So here's a quote. Do people who change Black Lives Matter to All Lives Matter run through a cancer fundraiser going, there are other diseases too? So, or do you crash a stranger's funeral saying, I too have felt loss. And here is a bit from a Unitarian Universalist minister's explanation to a church member. Of course, all lives matter. Central to Unitarian Universalism is the affirmation of the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Sadly, our society has a long history of treating some people as less valuable than others. Study after study has confirmed that in equivalent situations, African Americans and Latinos are treated with deadly force far more often than white people, and authorities held less accountable. Unfortunately, racial bias continues to exist even when it is no longer conscious. This too is confirmed by multiple studies. A lack of accountability in the use of force, combined with unconscious bias, is too often a deadly combination, and one that could place police officers as well as the public in grave danger. Just one second, I lost my feed here. There we go. Okay, to say that Black Lives Matter is not to say that other lives do not. Indeed, it's quite the reverse. It's to recognize that all lives do matter, and to acknowledge that African Americans are often targeted unfairly. Witness the number of African Americans accosted daily for no reason other than walking through a neighborhood, including some like Trayvon Martin, who lost their lives, and that our society is not yet so advanced as to have become truly colorblind. This means that many people of goodwill face the hard task of recognizing that these societal ills continue to exist, and that white privilege continues to exist, even though we wish it didn't and would not have asked for it. I certainly agree. This is from a minister. I certainly agree that no loving God would judge anyone by skin color. And before I continue, I just want to look at the comments here, and we'll come back and complete this. Sally De La Rosa says, this has been a huge topic of conversation in my life. Thank you so much, Sally. And hopefully it's a huge topic of conversation for all of us, because as we grow our compassion and grow our understanding, we're growing our capability to create a world where we all are truly one human family, and not the dysfunctional human family that we are currently. So hopefully this is the beginning of our movement toward healing racism and prejudice throughout the world. And Dido, thank you so much for posting the link to this article. It's really worthwhile. I actually sent it to myself on my phone, and I'm sharing it with others. And there are lots of people who are putting out wonderful resource lists, particularly to educate white people to what the reality is, what the real situation is for people of color. And there are calls to action and all kinds of things that we can do to educate ourselves, educate our children, educate our communities. Didi Cato says, thank you. I so love your inner peace, your softness. Thank you. Thank you for making the clarification available. Togetherness united is the key. Different skin, culture, origin does not mean different race, only one human with all different types of strengths. And there's more. With all different types of strengths, gifts, intelligence, beauty within all groups. Let's recognize that and live peacefully. Love, Diana. I hope I said your name right, Diana. Thank you for that. My sentiments exactly. So I'm going to continue with this quote from the minister. He says, as a white man, I have never been followed by security in a department store or been stopped by police for driving through a neighborhood in which I didn't live. My African American friends have. almost to a person, had these experiences. Some have been through incidents that were far worse. I owe it to the ideal that we share, the ideal that all lives matter, to take their experiences seriously and listen to what they are saying. To deny the truth of these experiences because they make me uncomfortable would be to place my comfort above the safety of others, and I cannot do that. And before I read further, I'm just going to read Sally's comment. Being born of two divided races, it has been with me my entire life. My father was prejudiced until his girls taught him to be otherwise. That's beautiful, Sally. God bless you as children, right? So to continue and complete this quote from this pastor, I very much appreciate you writing to me, and I am glad we share the goal of coming to a day when people will not be judged consciously or unconsciously on the basis of their race. I believe that day is possible too, but that it will take a great deal of work to get there. That work begins by listening to one another, and listening especially to the voices of those who have the least power in society. If nothing else is clear from the past few weeks, it's painfully evident that a great many people do not believe that they are being treated fairly. Healing begins by listening to those voices and those stories. So this is really a powerful and important moment, and a tremendous opportunity for us all to educate our minds and our hearts to the suffering that we might have turned a blind eye to. And one of the things that we are called to do is to deeply explore our own prejudices. And I'm not just talking about racial prejudice. I think the opportunity here is absolutely to be putting our attention on the current, it's not current, it's persistent, on the racial concerns and issues and inequities that exist, and how we can bring greater communion. And at the same time, let's be looking at our other prejudices as well, whether it's against religious groups or people who look different in any way, whether it be through their weight or the color of their hair, or whether they have piercings or not, or gender differences. These are all prejudices that we get to look at. And I spoke yesterday about the kinds of dialogue that shows up in my head, and I am understanding that I'm not alone, thankfully, in that, like, that is not my own, like these epithets or just horrible things every now and then just pop into my head in a voice that I don't know where it came from, and it stirs such shame to hear that thought. Is like, where did that come from? And when you experience that kind of thought, call it out. Call it out. Recognize it. Recognize that it isn't yours. Take conscious intention and disown that thought and say, that is not mine. Or and look first at where that may be reflecting or have some resonance within you, reflecting some truth that may be buried, and look to heal that. We need to be able to offer ourselves forgiveness for those things until we can face our own shame and our own embarrassment and fear around the issue of difference, we can't heal it fully. And I want to read one more piece from this article, and this is from a law student, and it says premise is there's an invisible only in front of the words Black Lives Matter. Critique. Before we start, Sally says it starts within. I agree, and it takes courage. This is a topic that it takes courage to confront. There's no doubt about it. It takes courage. So, critique. There is a difference between focus and exclusion. If something matters, this does not imply that nothing else does. If I say law students matter, it does not imply that my colleagues, friends, and family do not. Here is something else that matters: context. The Black Lives Matter movement arose in a context of evidence that they don't. When people are receiving messages from the culture in which they live that their lives are less important than other lives, it's a cruel distortion of reality to scold them for not being inclusive enough. As applied specifically to the context, apparently the student had worn a Black Lives Matter shirt. As applied specifically to the context in which I wore my Black Lives Matter shirt, I did this on a day in criminal procedure when we were explicitly discussing violence against the Black community by police. There are some implicit words that precede Black Lives Matter, and they go something like this: because of the brutalizing and killing of Black people at the hands of police and the indifference of society in general and the criminal justice system in particular, it is important that we say that Black Lives Matter. This, of course, is far too long to fit on a shirt. Black Lives Matter is about focus, not exclusion. As a general matter, seeing the world and the people in it mutually exclusive, either or terms, impedes your own thought processes. If you wish to bear that intellectual consequence of a constricting ideology, that's your decision. But this does not entitle you to project your either or ideology onto people who do not share it. Saying Black Lives Matter, and this is the premise, saying Black Lives Matter is an expression of racist hatred of white people. Critique. Black Lives Matter is not a statement about white people. It does not exclude white people. It does not accuse white people unless you are a specific white person who perpetrates, endorses, or ignores violence against Black people. If you are one of those people, then somebody had better be saying something to you. I'm using you here in the general sense as a substitute for one, and not as in you memo writers. So, yes. So Black Lives Matter, now that we have walked through that, means Black Lives Matter too. And not only Black Lives Matter. Of course, all lives matter. And Black lives need to matter as much as everyone else's lives matter. So I think that's it for today. It was an enlightening article for me. And once again, I invite you to find the link that is posted in the comments if you're looking this over now or later, and share that article. And let's lift our awareness. Let's lift our compassion, and let's engage in real, deep introspection, conversation, and connection. And that's it for today. And I just want to say thank you so much for engaging with me this morning. And I hope you'll take this out into your communities. And I hope you'll check out the other wonderful programming on Enlightened World Network. And I'm here weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And I hope I see you back here tomorrow. This is the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin. And Dido says, thank you, Mira, and everyone here. I'm so grateful to all of you who are exercising the courage to engage honestly in this conversation, to identify your own prejudices, and to educate yourselves, and as we can all together, to evolving our consciousness and our culture. And Sally says, sending you love for this tough topic in today's world. And love right back at you, Sally. Thank you all. That's it for today. Much love.